Well, good evening. This is John Sarver from Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association. Welcome to our Thursday evening Zoom. Tonight we have a treat. Dan Terpstra from Grand Rapids is going to tell us his solar story. I'd like to thank our sponsors, the State Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, McNaught and McKay, and Harvest Solar. And I'd also like to, I know many of you are GLREA members, and if you're not, I'd like to encourage you to consider joining us and supporting our advocacy and education efforts. It's easy to do. Just go to our website, glrea.org, and you'll see the right buttons to push. And that will enable you to kind of stay in the loop about a lot of things that are going on at the local and state levels. And let's see, I should mention that, we have a kind of a regular series now on Thursday nights. First Thursday is Ann Arbor Solar Stories, hosted by Julie Roth. Second Thursday is Clean Energy Seminars, a variety of topics on clean energy, hosted by Mark Clevey. The third Thursday is the Detroit Solar Stories, hosted by Diane Van Buren, GLREA board member. And then the fourth Thursday, we do a My Solar Story, or sometimes an energy Q&A. And so, hey, thank you for joining us. And I'm going to turn it over to Dan now.
Thank you so much, John. I am going to figure out again how to put this on my screen. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I think I have to say share. And I need to go. Hopefully everybody can see this big image in the front. Thumbs up. Oh no, stop. Again, it happened last time. Good, I see thumbs up. Okay. Hello, my name is Dan Terpstra, and I am in Grand Rapids, Michigan right now. So I may be coming from a different angle from what you guys are used to, who you're used to talking to. I want to tell you kind of a linear story. It's very much a truncated version of a bigger story because I don't want to make you guys fall asleep, mainly. So I'm going to start by telling you little bits and pieces of who I am. So that's me hiding behind my wife on the screen. That's either right before or right after we got engaged in South Korea. We're on Mount Bukhansan, and she was out there and got some great photos of her. And I'm like, I'm going to go out and try to take a picture of both of us. And I was afraid because that dropped off a cliff right next to us. I start with this because she is a huge part of how we got here today. This is my family. This is on Christmas Day. We were down in Florida and trying to stay away from all the people who didn't believe in masks and things like that. My mom just wanted a photo of us in dorky clothes. So my drone is taking a selfie for us, which is hilarious, especially on a beach that says no drones. It's my 18-year-old daughter, my wife, and I'm the tall dorky one. I bring this up again because this is very pivotal, but talk a little bit about my passions and why we're here today. I've been told that I'm a super fan, that everything I'm interested in, I go all the way, like a wall of guitars or solar panels or photography lenses and cameras and blah, blah, blah. But my day job is as a photographer. I tend to be, lots of times you see pictures of people online where they show a photographer dancing around, and when those started going commonly on Facebook, everybody was tagging me saying, hey, look, it's you. I'm the photographer that used to get on the ground and show every other photographer how to get on the ground for pictures. And so I take a wide range of photos, work on construction scenes, and that's an art director coaching me, laughing because I'm coaching the talent on the shoot. And it brings me to a lot of weird situations, whether it's weddings that have literally in a couple of weeks 35 people in the bridal party, or just a little baby shoot in the woods, or products, bottles of things, architectural shots for large clients, and then all sorts of other things. I tend to like to conduct the photos like a story or a choir. It sort of looks like I'm conducting a choir there. So a little bit of who I am, I'm a photographer is my day job. Photography has taken me to interesting places. Of course, you always see photographers have interesting, weird places. I tend to, like every person who takes pictures, I want to capture a story or something like that.
Are we going to hear about solar?
I'm going to get to that. Sorry, I'm not sure who said that, but I'm going to get to it. I think this is all going to be part of the solar story. So I ended up traveling a lot around and always being told that Grand Rapids, being the second cloudiest city in the US, could not have solar. I've always been told that Grand Rapids was a non-solar capable city. And growing up, I always thought it was such a cloudy city. Then I'd look back at photos when I drive toward the lake and I'd see that I got the Milky Way in photos and things and say, maybe there's a possibility. So getting back to my wife, she has made a lot of things possible for me, including my solar background, but my solar panels that are on the house right now. But when we traveled through Spain, we saw so much wind generation. We saw so much solar. We got so inspired. When we were in Peru, we just saw sunshine and blah, 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 lots of great things. We travel all over the place and we keep learning more and more about how things can work. When I was in the Netherlands in 2019, it was the biggest time where I said, I think we need to change how we're thinking, because essentially we have the same weather in Grand Rapids. I don't know if everybody knows Grand Rapids has different weather than the rest of the state for the most part, because of the lake, but it's essentially the same as what they have in the Netherlands, and they are loaded with solar. So that got me re-energized. Going back in the early 2000s, I was re-energized about solar because as a kid, I'd always seen it and thought it was a really interesting thing, but started to see how people could potentially use diversified energy instead of one type of energy. So I am talking about solar because I have solar panels, but quite often what I really want to talk about is also using hydro and using wind and using multiple forms of energy creation. In the mid 2000s, I started to get a little bit of a soapbox idea of diversified energy and how we could do it to slow down some of the subsidies for corn and stuff by literally using them for biofuels and things like that. I've changed my tune a little bit, but at one point I had all these ideas and the 2008 election came by and somebody went door to door and asked, what are the most important things to you in this election? And I said, it's probably not on your sheet of paper. And I started laying out my whole idea for how a diversified energy system could completely change the country and change our reliance on fossil fuels, essentially. That guy called his boss. That guy called his boss. And I ended up getting a phone call from Stephen Chu, who was the first energy secretary for Barack Obama. He talked, he said, tell me the story, blah, blah, blah. I gave him a much bigger, that's a different presentation, gave him a big presentation about how we could use solar and water and wind to change the path of the country. Shortly after that phone call, my world exploded. And I made mention to an ex-wife earlier. She disappeared. That's a longer story, but I got a call to actually be at the Barack Obama's inauguration, but my world was so confused I couldn't do it. So now let's fast forward many years. When I married my wife, Michelle, we realized we use a lot of energy at our house. Consumers energy, we use typically, we're on the budget plan for $350 a month is our current energy usage. And at some point last year, a guy came to our door from Victory Power and basically said, did you know you could do solar? And I said, Grand Rapids and clouds. And he started giving me some numbers. And I began to very, very heavily research what this guy was telling me, because I said, well, geez, I'm interested in solar, but I just don't know if it can happen here. So this is, by the way, a picture of solar panels out at the Grand Rapids water, where they pump the water for Grand Rapids. So these are very responsible for the water that's sprinkling the lawns here because it's in the middle of the daytime. I began talking to more people than just Victory Power. I talked to Climax Solar. I reached out to Harvest. I talked to the Green Panel and several others. And I found everybody had kind of a different way of doing their stuff. One of the things that I really did not like about lots of the people is they were using third-party installers that were coming from other states. And so if you had a repair issue or something like that, they might be weeks or months before they'd actually get back to fix something for you. So we ended up talking more with the Green Panel, was the one who had their own people that would do the installation. And he gave me a lot of great information, and it led me to talking to the city in the zoning departments and the planning departments. And at that time, Grand Rapids did not allow you to have solar panels on the street-facing side of your house. And at least, excuse me, all of the inspectors said in Grand Rapids, you can't have street-facing solar. So here, the only way you could have solar is if it's hidden from your neighbors, essentially. So I began talking to the mayor, talking to other people here to say, we got to change this. And the mayor said, well, we changed that in 2019. Turns out that the inspectors didn't realize that the laws have been changing in Grand Rapids. So all of this information from these people was really, really archaic information. But as I talked to them more and more, they were saying, well, you can only put it on one side of your house. You can't really put it all over the place because that would end up basically making a mess, is what they thought. And my house does not really face south. It doesn't face any general direction. It's on an angle. My north is kind of down. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but down toward that bush to the bottom left is to the north of my house. So that is the basic roof line of my house. We, after doing a lot of research, figuring out who would be the best, and we decided we wanted to wait for higher wattage panels. So a lot of the people were doing 330 watt or 340 watt, and we waited for the new Panasonic Tesla co-production of the 370 watt panels. We had to wait for those until late July to even get them installed, which gave us time to do a new roof, gave us time to do new 200 amp service to our house, and things that would give us more expansion ability, whether we add new panels or whether we do electric cars or something like that. Because as it stands, we wouldn't be able to do most of those things. So in late July, the Green Panel came and started to install. As you might notice here, you can at least see 3 sides of the house have panels on them. The little center, the little valley there kind of by the ladder is kind of facing south. So I talked to the city and they said, well, as an exemption, you can do panels on multiple sides if you want, but you have to prove that it's useful. So I went to them and showed them that in the summertime, it's useful having one behind where these gentlemen are standing, which kind of faces a little bit north. But in the wintertime, we really need these on the garage. But the primary is where these guys are installing currently, because that kind of faces east-southeast. So these guys did a fantastic job of the installation, and very professional, very clean, very, safe and everything. They just did an amazing, amazing job. I kind of lost my spot there thinking about how good of a job they did. I really liked their mounting methods. A lot of the people were mounting with flashing under the shingles, and the city themselves told me, if you can use somebody that uses one of the epoxy blocks, that is the modern method to install. So that has worked out pretty well for us because the Green Panel used those types of blocks. What I should say, now I have the power, like He-Man. When we finally got everything going, I'm not sure how many people have an end phase type system, but we just love the idea that we can see things quickly on our phone as to how much energy we're using, how much energy we're generating. This is a look at the first week that we had solar. Kind of looks like a big lizard to me, or a big dinosaur of some sort. But we were generating oftentimes so much more that we were exporting a lot back to consumers energy. My consumers energy folks actually educated me a little bit that all of the energy I'm generating was not going back to the grid so much as to my neighbors across the street next door. They said, where that transformer box is across the street, my power goes there and goes to the closest neighbors. So I was generating electricity for my neighbors, which they thought was pretty awesome. At multiple points on a sunny day, we were generating for 5 houses, which was fantastic. As we got closer and closer to autumn and started to see the sun kind of shift to the south, we started to see that a lot of the major, like the big side of the house, is not getting as much solar as just the garage and our dining room, which is facing a little bit more south. But we were able to take our $350 a month consumers energy bill, and within a few weeks, let me make sure I get the exact right number, that 4 weeks of installation, we had a $350 credit. Within 6 weeks, we had a $600 credit. And by October, we had a $675 credit, but it started to slow down. We just finally received our first actual bill since we've had solar. Unfortunately, in Grand Rapids, we don't have a lot of sun in the wintertime, so we're repaying consumers energy right now. But if all of my calculations are accurate, the energy we generate between March and September will pay for our all year round. Now, because we get real false information from people about consumers energy. When we were first doing this, they were telling us that consumers energy, their peak power is going to cost 19 cents and they were going to pay us 4 cents to credit it. And I was just ticked, and I joined groups like this, and I saw a lot of people talking about DTE being terrible to people, and I thought, consumers energy is terrible too. After we started to generate it, I learned that that was totally inaccurate. When my neighbors are paying 14 cents, or when I'm paying 14 cents during peak, they're paying me 12 cents during peak for whatever I'm generating. So it's not a terrible profit loss deal from my perspective. Right now in the wintertime, we're paying about 10 cents per kilowatt hour, and they're paying us about 8 cents, which we are still generating some, which is kind of a miracle to me sometimes. Over this month, we have found that we've started to generate a little more, but our biggest problem we're running into right now is snow. And on the group, a lot of people talk about what we should do with snow. And one person said a couple weeks ago, it's probably not worth damaging your investment for what little energy you can create. Well, we truly are not generating that much when it looks like that, but that's a good example of a sunny day where we could be generating something. This is today. This is about 4 o'clock today, where we are just getting tons of lake effect snow and tons of little flurries. So we're not getting much solar right now. I am looking for solutions to give us slightly better wintertime generation. But what I'm really doing now is, of course, I'm waiting for March. That's what I'm really doing. But I'm educating my neighbors. By having these panels on the front of the house, I can literally be out front planting tulips or watering the lawn, or which that goes into a whole different side of my environmental stance. But doing things in the front yard, and people will stop and they'll say, "Hey, what's those? You see, you got solar. Is that doing anything?" And I tell them a little bit of the story. And it's gotten to the point where a guy that lives behind us tried to install his own. He's not had the best of luck. So he's come by and asked a couple of times if I could help. And I said, well, I could give you information. But I've had at least 3 other neighbors ask me to come over and talk to them about whether or not it's going to work for them. I have a fair amount of space in between me and my neighbors for living in the city of Grand Rapids. I'm the miracle 1 acre lot in the city of Grand Rapids after the year 2000, which is hard to imagine. But that means I don't have a lot of concern about anything blocking the solar. A lot of my neighbors have trees that are gigantic and they're close to other neighbors' houses and things like that. So I have been pointing the people toward the resources to get this done. Ultimately, I want to help to get the word going in Grand Rapids. We have a fair amount of people in farmland in Ottawa County, which is what borders Lake Michigan for Grand Haven and Holland, who are doing solar, but they're kind of doing it because they want to get off the grid and they want to give the middle finger to the governor or something like that. But I'm trying to help educate Grand Rapids people. To my awareness of what I'm fully aware, just because of social media, I've had at least 12 people reach out to the Green Panel to ask about getting solar in Grand Rapids. That is an exciting prospect to me. That's something that feels great. My future look for this whole thing, go back a couple quick steps here. Chrysler announced last week that they want to have all electric cars by 2028. From my perspective, we don't have the grid system to support that unless we make some changes. And so a brewery downtown Grand Rapids, Brewery Vivant, put up a huge array of solar panels on their roof. And they are now generating a lot more electricity even than they need to do brewing. And we're starting to see some changes in Grand Rapids. But as it stands, most people in Grand Rapids still think you can't do solar. So my goal is to help to hopefully grow this on the west side of the state. And ultimately, I think we can literally use Ottawa County that has a very low water table and a Grand River flowing through it, which is huge, and have them doing, what am I trying to say? Like greenhouses that have solar on them and creating tropical fruits and things inside with water that's flowing in from the river. Because the Netherlands is growing their own avocados just 15 miles outside of Amsterdam. We had fresh mangoes in the Netherlands. we had fresh tomatoes, which was great. Obviously, that's not a miracle in July, but they do it all year round. And so my theory is, with the combination between the solar, the wind, and water, both in terms of hydroelectrical generation and also literally just channeling it through for vegetation growth and stuff like that, I believe we can have a major wind of change in West Michigan. So that is, in short, the truncated version of my solar story.
It's a great story.
Thank you, Dan. If you want to stop the screen sharing, we'll take questions from folks. That was great. Let's see, if you want to, you can go under reactions and raise your hand virtually. Or if you want to, you can unmute yourself. And okay, Charles, first question. Go ahead, Charles.
Yeah, I'm looking at, especially a place like Grand Rapids or even across Michigan, and the particular solar panels you had. How's the efficiency? What's the efficiency in sunny days, and what's the rated efficiency in cloudy days, and how does that impact it? Because back in my day, if you had any clouds, forget it. But now I know that they can still produce some power even in cloudy days. So
that's a great question. It's funny. It all came from me from this watch. I don't know if that's showing up on the screen, but this Casio watch actually generates its own power. I've never changed a battery on it, and I've had it since 2007. I kind of incorrectly thought that our solar panels will generate even on the cloudiest day because my watch does. It's not true. They do require a lot more electricity. With that being said, we're seeing in the winter time, even when there's just clouds, we have pretty dismal days. Efficiency when you have snow on them is 0, but If you have moderate clouds, we have like about a 15-20% efficiency compared to a sunny day. The problem is Grand Rapids is known for overcast, and overcast tends to be terrible for us. We would see, I don't have a picture of it that I can pull up quick, but on my phone, we would see an overcast day. On a sunny day in August, we would generate 70 kilowatts of power in August. So obviously further from June 21st, but we would generate a pretty decent amount of energy. On a cloudy day, we would only generate maybe 40, 35. And on an overcast day, we generate about 20. Now, obviously in the wintertime, we have less daylight. So we're really happy when we get 10 kilowatts right now. But I hope that answered it.
Yeah, Clayton, go ahead.
Yeah, what's the size of your system?
Oh, great. Yeah, I thought I put it in my presentation to say it. They call it a 12 kilowatt hour system. I call it 11.84 kilowatt. So 11.84 kilowatt is our current, it's a 32 panel array, 32 full panels and 12 kilowatts.
Go ahead, Abraham.
So you don't have batteries, right?
Great question. I've been watching batteries for years. Kind of rushed through based on one of the earlier comments, but I've noticed that last year we could get a dual set of batteries for about 14 grand after tax credit, and in the previous year was about 55 grand. The year before that was about 150 grand, and before that it was well over $500,000 to get two power walls, or two battery power wall. And so I'm taking the calculated risk that if it's gone down that much, that possibly by this coming year, we can for about 9 grand get 2 power walls. As it stands right now, no, we do not have it. We're just selling it back to Consumers Energy and appreciating the credits.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Emily?
So you're about breaking even on energy production, but my energy usage is about a quarter of yours. What is the time that you're looking at for the energy to pay for the cost of the system, and how much of that was offset by grants or tax credits?
So the original system was about 40 grand. Because of the tax credits, it brings it to 28 grand, which is a nice thing. I'm trying to pay off anything that I can with this any earlier, but it's going to be hard to say if we're going to have a big payoff from Consumers Energy. They told us if we're having a surplus, tends to be whenever they redo the budget system, they'll decide if they're going to actually give you any money back. So chances are we're not going to see them paying us any actual cash for at least 2 to 3 years. Now, with that being said, if I'm not paying in any time of the year, it'll be nice. I can take the $350 that we normally pay Consumers Energy and pay off our what's going to be about $200 a month system a lot quicker. But I guess I don't have a forecasted date, Emily.
Hey, Abraham, did you still have a question, or didn't you put your hand out? Okay, Kate?
Thank you. Did you end up using the Tesla solar panels?
So my understanding in the research is that the Panasonic panels we put on were a co-development with Tesla. So essentially right now, Tesla has a 370 watt panel and Panasonic does. What I can see visually from them both, because they're both at the showroom down in Byron Center, they look exactly the same. So I think they are literally the same panel. One says Tesla, one says Panasonic. But no, we ended up doing the Panasonic. What I found is Panasonic, 65% of them were made in New York. So I took the gamble that we got the 65% that were made in New York instead of the Philippines.
Yeah, Buffalo, New York.
Buffalo, New York.
Yep.
Yep. That area, like close to it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
somewhere in the Buffalo area. Yep. Ron?
Muted.
Go ahead, Ron.
There we go.
Yeah, so you said you're on a acre lot in Grand Rapids, which I grew up in Grand Rapids. That's kind of amazing if you're in the city limits and you have an acre. So why did you put them on the roof? Since you had a difficult time orienting them on your house, why didn't you just set up a freestanding solar panel?
A great question. So number one, Grand Rapids, they don't allow it. I can't put them on the ground. Number two, behind my house is a drainage easement and a power easement. Ironically, Consumers Energy does not want them on a power easement, which is hilarious because it goes to them. We have power lines that run behind our house. And so we can't have a structure of any sort built within 26 feet of those power lines, any direction. And those power lines are a large part of what gives us the acre lot. The other part of it is, even if they would allow us to do it, we have a butterfly sanctuary behind our house, and we like the amount of nature back there. We like the destructive deer and the turkeys and the fox and other things that we have that we can see right off our deck, which you may have seen our giant pergola on some of the photos. But that's the main reason is two reasons is number one, Grand Rapids does not allow it residentially as it stands in the city, because most people in the city don't have an acre, so they don't have a rule set up for it. I did talk to the mayor and she said she would consider that, but you still have your drainage easement and your blah, blah, blah. And I wanted to do it a lot sooner than bureaucracy works.
Yeah, I think I see Marcia raising her hand. Marcia, do you want to ask a question or? Gotta unmute yourself. Here, let me unmute you.
Oh,
Okay, go ahead.
sorry about that. Thank you for the presentation. It's very interesting. I have solar on my house. I've had it for 10 years. And of course, my panels are only sort of 220 watts. So
Yeah.
good for you. Maybe I should switch them out. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, my thought is that I heard somewhere last week or 2 weeks ago that there is a substance that has been developed that you can put on your panels to help the snow to slide off or other things to slide off. Does anyone know about that? Did you have that done to yours?
I have not. Somebody brought up the U of M was collaborating with, I think, the University of Colorado on it, I think is what it was. And I reached out to whoever put the link up. I reached out and have not heard anything back yet. But I think they put that up about 3 weeks ago. And I reached out last week and still haven't heard anything back yet.
Well, that would be something interesting to follow, I think, for people who live in this part. I live in the Frankfort, Michigan area. So
Oh,
we
yeah.
have a lot of snow.
Well, so today I was driving through Ottawa County though, and I saw big panels that were ground mounted outside like greenhouses and farms and things like that. And they were full 45-degree angle panels and they had snow on them. You know, people said, oh, but if you had 45 degrees, the snow will come right off. Not today.
It depends. I mean, I have practically a 45-degree roof on the south side of the house. And normally it will slide off, but it takes sort of an hour or two of sunshine to come out and
Yeah.
and then it does.
Yeah. Yeah. I a couple times got on a ladder and used like a broom to try and gently get the snow off. But then somebody put the fear of science in me that I was going to destroy my panels. And I was like, I'll wait for the U of M thing to pan out.
There is a rake you can use, I think.
Yeah, there's one that Amazon had on. I asked the other people and they didn't have one, but I saw one on Amazon and it was like $285, but it was like delivery by March 15. And that was back in like November. I thought, well, it's a little slow.
Yeah, the U of M thing, which that item appeared in our monthly newsletter, which is sent out to all the GLRE members. But it's just in research mode now, and it's not close to commercialization. But apparently, there are some dealers who maybe have some materials that can be used. How good they are, I don't know. But sometimes the solar installers talk about different materials they use in order to help snow slide. So, again, ask a lot of questions. Steg, you have a question?
Yeah, my question is, When did you sign your contract with Consumers Energy? It's distributed energy net metering. Sounds like you're gonna produce 100% of your annual. When did you sign that contract?
I think it was originally around December, July 25th or 26th. And I was told pretty assuredly that,
What year?
oh, this year, 2021, last year, 2021. And I was told that they would for sure take the full 14 days in order to respond to me, which I thought was kind of comical. And they got back to me on day 13, but we were able to finally install 13 days after they signed the contract.
Yeah. So you're under what is now called the distributed generation tariff. Jay, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. For one, I'll congratulate you on Green Panel. They're one of the top-rated companies, and one of my neighbors a couple of blocks down the road actually works for them as an installer. Also, congratulations on Enphase. I did a do-it-yourself install here using Enphase, and that has worked out excellent. It's only a 5 kW system. But I also do 12 volt DC, and my house is wired for 12 volts. So I have a hybrid home. Did want to comment that a number of these larger capacity solar panels, where they'll say 400 or more watts, you have to look at the size, the number of square inches of panel, because they might be rated for a higher wattage, but they're also a physically larger panel. The other thing is, I saw a press release just today on a company producing a solar panel that actually has a heating element in it. These were really meant for trailers and workplaces like construction sites and so forth, where they'll apply power to it to melt off whatever snow or ice is on it. Certainly it takes some energy to do that, but just to let folks know, there are panels out there that do that. Question I've got for you, Dan, is the Enphase inverters, were those IQ7 or IQ8? And did you install an Envoy data collection unit? And then I've got 2 more items after that.
Well, let's see if I can figure out by looking at the Enphase app. Unfortunately, my music room has terrible internet in it. So it might take me to find that out. But I know it tells me all of that. That's one of the bits I don't know off the top of my head. So bear with me for a second here. Okay, yeah. So today I have a whole 121 watts generated by one of the panels.
I was thrilled. I got 600 watts out of mine today, peak. And then it dropped back down to about 100, 150 watts. And that's about where it hovered for the rest of the day.
What part of the state are you in?
I'm in Ypsilanti.
Okay. I'm seeing firmware. Oh, did you say IQ7? Was that one of the things you asked about?
IQ7 or IQ8?
I have an IQ7 Plus.
7 Plus, okay.
Yeah. Different firmware things. Last reported January 27th, so I guess that's that. And then you had another question tied to that, but I don't know if I would have the answer to that immediately available.
Yeah, I was just asking if you also installed the Envoy data collection unit, because that allows you, that has its own web server in it. So if your internet is down, you can still go and connect to the Envoy and pull up performance data right there.
Yeah.
The last two comments I had are, there are people that have the same issue with right-of-way on some of their property. And I've seen what they do is they'll do a ground mount system mounted on a trailer frame. And since it's not a permanent structure, it blows away the your city or township's rules, and it can be moved at any time that they need to come in and do any repairs or work. The other thing is you're getting in Grand Rapids, you're not that far north, but I just wanted to point out here to folks that if you live north of the 45th latitude, a lot of times it's much more convenient to just mount the panels vertically on a wall, an exterior wall, like on a garage or a pole barn. The snow doesn't stick, and they still are mostly pointed towards the sun. So always think outside the box. Things don't have to be on a roof. They can be mounted on a wall if you are far enough north.
Like Frankfurt.
Yes, absolutely. The lady in Frankfurt, put them on a wall. And Frankfurt's beautiful, by the way. My wife's parents used to live up there.
No,
That's
but
all.
I have to butt in here. My architect, I built a house. My architect made the angle of the roof toward the south, the right angle for the latitude for collecting.
Excellent.
And
Excellent.
I did that in 1977.
That's thinking ahead.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Cindy, go ahead. Cindy?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Thank you so much for the presentation, Dan. I'm new to the group, but I'm very interested in, there's a lot of lingo I see I have to become familiar with, but you said 28,000 was your installation cost for materials and labor, right?
Everything that they did from permitting and all of the stuff, like they charge you to talk to Consumers Energy. I of course talked to them too, but they at least did the official talking to Consumers Energy. Originally it was 39.8 and some change, but after the tax credit, it's going down to 28.2, I think 28.18, something like that.
Oh, okay.
And that's with everything.
So the tax credit was like what, 30% or something?
26. It's either 26 point something or just 26 even.
Okay. And is that in perpetuity so far? Do you know? Well, nothing's in perpetuity, but.
No, it goes down at the end of this year.
Really?
And it's part of the Build Back Better bill to push it back up to 30%, but that bill is stuck in the US Senate right now. So that's why it's really important. If you're thinking about doing solar, you should really try and do it this year in order to maximize the federal tax credit.
Also, you can, if you have to redo your roof first, that can be part of the cost of putting solar up. So you can add that into the cost of your solar when you get the tax credit.
Ah, interesting.
Our roof. And actually I didn't say this in there because of a little rush there, but we ended up doing a 98% recycled shingle that most shingles, they get about 12 in a pack. Our shingle that we had only got 5 in a pack. The guys were unhappy with how heavy they were. But it ended up costing us about $2,500 more than a regular shingle, but it's got about a 50 to 70 year lifespan on it.
Ooh.
And
really, wow.
Yeah, it's a Malarkey brand. It's a Malarkey, like a good Irish Malarkey with an EY. And it's and I don't think it's full of Malarkey. I think it's actually good, but it's very interesting how they're constructed because they've got a huge amount of recycled content in them, which is awesome.
That sounds great. Lisa, go ahead, Lisa.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. So my question is, did you say that before you had the system installed, you had your electrical service to your house, like brought a bigger one or something? And did you include the cost of that in your overall cost?
I did not include that in the overall cost because we did it. So it was about $500. We did a service upgrade. What's hilarious is when I built the house, I felt like I was fighting the builder the entire time, which should have been a red flag. But the builder, I said, I want a 200 amp service, and he is putting 100 amp and everybody else is 18 years ago. And so he said, basically, I saw it in the paperwork later that he only put 150 amp because that was more than we'll ever need. And so yeah. Looking at my music room here should be enough of the, behind me is my photo studio that uses a lot of amperage. At least it used to with old fashioned gear, but we went up to a 200 amp service partially for the higher amperage for a power wall, at least intercommunication, but also because we just needed a bigger panel. Our panel we had so many tandem panel circuits on there that about 15 of the circuits we had 2 switches on each. So we could not have done the solar on that particular panel. We would have had to do a sub panel anyway. So, and actually that I should say that the sub panel was going to cost us $1,600, cost us $500 to do it with me and a friend. And so that actually saved us a little money in the long run. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, other questions or comments? I think
Yeah,
we've
this is
covered-
John Freeman. In the chat, people have been asking the question that I wanted to ask. Can we go over the numbers again regarding what you're getting for the credit for putting your electricity back to consumers? I think you said that initially you were paying 18 cents for retail and you were getting a 14 cents distributive generation tariff. And then in the winter, you were getting like 10 cents per retail, and then you were getting like 8 cents per distributive generation tariff.
Yeah, no. So best that I can tell, first when they told me, when some of the other companies said, "Oh, Consumers Energy is going to rip you a new one,"
Now, forget about the other companies. Just tell me the reality.
Yeah. So the numbers showed from August and September that we had peak that they were charging us 14 cents, or charging everybody 14 cents, I suppose. And we were getting like 12.2 or 12.4. I'd have to look at that actual number. It was definitely a decimal point. So we were just under 2 cents less than the charge that they were charging. And last time I looked at it in December, it was about 10 cents for people for kilowatt hour charges. And we were getting a little under 8.5 cents, like 8.4, I think.
Well, again, this is interesting because, and maybe Dale Klein, I don't know if you're asking a question, you're going to comment on it, but distributive generation tariff is about half of the retail rate. That certainly is the case with DTE. And I thought that consumers basically got the same basic formula that DTE had. So I'm a little baffled, but then again, I'm not in consumers turf, so I may not be knowledgeable. Maybe Dale's got some information.
I don't know for sure, but I was going to ask what is the name of the rate that you're on, and are you on a time of day rate where your electricity cost is higher during the day and lower at night?
In the summertime, they have peak and standards. So I think it's 7 o'clock at night, it goes back to standard. But at this time of year, it's just all the same price no matter what. And I'll see if it has let's see if I can pull up my Consumers Energy. I know, so my bill on the 19th. I don't know if I know what the name of it is, perhaps. I'm not sure if I understand the question with that.
Well, they have all different kinds of rates. And so there's, I'm not familiar with the names of the consumer energy or consumers, different rates, but a time of day rate, and your peak rate is from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. I think
it starts earlier than 2. I think
and so you pay, if you're going to buy electricity from the grid during that time from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m., you pay a higher rate, at least weekdays. And if you outflow, you get that same rate minus the distribution cost or the distribution charge. So if you're on the time of day rate, it's not exactly like half of the retail rate is your credit. Your credit is the retail rate minus the transmission charges, roughly. So I think it does usually work out best to be on time of day rate, as long as you don't have loads like in the wintertime that are like all of your energy is consumed during peak times, when you can't usually get any solar for it. But generally, if you have solar, you probably want to be on the time of day rate with distributed generation. It'll work out better for you.
So
if
I
you have
see
batteries, then it'll be even better that way.
Yeah. So we see self-generated outflow, energy winter. It's just talking about different rates. So it's 8.42 cents is what we're getting for outflow. It's just saying energy winter, self-generated outflow. Our electric charges are saying non-summer bill rates. Apparently we have none of that. I mean, it's all of that. And it's 10.0000496 is what we'd be paying. And we were again getting back from them 8.2062 cents. But it doesn't, I don't see a name like that. I'd be glad to send a screenshot of this to see if it gives you any more information, but right here I don't see a name for what it is.
Well, Lisa Williams put something on the chat. Lisa, can you speak up? It sounds like you may know some information about this.
Yeah, I've been watching my consumers bills pretty closely. I got solar last summer, so I'm on distributed generation. And in the summertime, I have time of day. In the wintertime, it's all that flat rate. So I posted that capture there. So yeah, what the speaker was saying is pretty close to what mine is. 0.085 cents it rounds to is what they're paying me in the wintertime. But if I use power, they're charging me 10 cents and some tiny little decimals out there. In the summer, both go up, and they both go up proportionately. So on consumers energy distributed generation, I've been getting credits at 85% of whatever the rate is they're charging me at that time of day. And I'm in there, and I went on their critical peak pricing program as well. So on certain days, I get text messages saying, if you use energy between 2 and 6, we're going to charge you an arm and a leg. But that also means that when I'm generating during that time, they're paying me more. So I just shut everything in the house down on those peak days so that as much as possible is going back into the grid.
Yeah, I'm seeing that mine is 85%, both it's 85.4% in the summer and just 85 straight in the winter is how that works out.
Yep, it's pretty much the same year round, even as your rate is going up and down. It's that same ratio. That's what we're seeing with consumers.
Nice.
Lisa,
Where are you located?
I'm in Lansing,
Okay.
outside of Lansing.
And Lisa, how long have you had your system?
I got it last June. It took I went with Absolute Solar. They got it installed and turned on one day, and 3 days later, everything was completed with consumers, and I was back and forth with the grid.
Right. Sounds great.
Yeah, it went super smoothly.
Sounds a lot better than DTE.
Oh my gosh, I've heard that a lot.
You know, it's not the whole story. I mean, there's some flat rate distribution fees, and there's some distribution fees that are related per kilowatt hours. So on months where I was producing enough to completely offset my electrical 10 cents per kilowatt, I was still paying $18 to $20 a month because of all those other fees related to distribution and home heating credits and things like that. So in the summer, my bill was about $20 or less a month. And then I stayed that way for a while until I ran out of credits. And my last bill was $80.
And out of curiosity, how big is your array?
6.6 kilowatts. And I've seen it, you know, last summer after it first went in on a perfectly sunny day, I had days where I instantaneously hit 6.2 kilowatts or so. And I've got a pretty long run from my ground mount system to my house. So, and you know, I don't have perfect everything. So I was pretty pleased that it got pretty close to the theoretical max.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hey, now Cindy, do you have your hand raised? Did you have a question, or did you just forget to lower your hand?
Oh gosh, I have lots of questions. Am I supposed to lower my hand after I'm done answering or after I'm done asking?
Yes.
Oh,
Go
okay.
ahead, and if you had another question, go ahead.
Does anybody in the group tonight have a definite experience with DTE? Because I'm in Ann Arbor and I've heard the same horror stories, but it does sound like there's a lot of gossip out there and you really have to check things out for yourself. But does anybody have any recent experience with DTE?
Well, this is John Freeman, and I'm the executive director of GLREA. I live in DTE's turf, and my installer, just like what Dan was saying, my installer dealt with DTE the entire way. And I didn't have problems particularly at all. I mean, it took a little bit of time for them to come out to make the final inspection. Once the system's installed, we had to have my local city do a final inspection, and then DTE had to come out and give a final inspection. So it took, it took a few days for DTE to get out, but I didn't have a horrible experience. What we're experiencing as an organization is that consumers seems to be, especially based upon tonight's testimony, they seem to be a little more flexible about what they're crediting people for the extra energy they're putting back on the grid. DTE is pretty much straight, half of the retail rate.
Oh, so you're getting half.
Yeah, but on the other hand, one of the reasons why I asked Lisa Williams when she installed her system is that the utilities are coming under increased pressure by the Public Service Commission to come up with alternative pricing during different times of day, like Dale Klein was talking about, in order to change people's behavior. In other words, if you charge higher rates during the middle of the day when the demand for energy is the highest, particularly in the summer with high air conditioning demand, then hopefully if people can save money by not going on those peak days, and that's a nudge. So, so both utilities may be coming up with new rates. And so it's clear that I need to contact both utilities to get more familiar with the various rates they offer and whether that impacts with the distributed generation tariff, what they're crediting people at.
Thank you.
I second I second the experience that John just had. Mine was installed in 2019. Yes, it took time, but everything with DTE and the city of Ann Arbor went fine, flawlessly.
Yeah, a lot of it just depends, Cindy. It's really based upon how good a relationship the installer has with the company. And most companies that are in this business, they deal with the utilities all the time. And so they're, it's business, essentially. It's a business relationship, and there's pretty decent respect between the installers and the people who work at the utilities that deal with renewable energy. Now, that's a whole different ball of wax than the people in charge of overall utility policy. That's where we butt heads on. But those aren't the kind of like the line workers that deal with the businesses that install solar. And by the way, anytime anybody does have a problem with DTE or consumers, and you can't get satisfaction, or your installer can't get satisfaction on your behalf, you should contact GLREA, because we deal with the government relations people at both utilities pretty regularly. And so we can cut through a lot of the bureaucratic noise and get solutions to problems if they pop up. So keep that in mind. That's a part of the benefit of becoming a member at GLREA. So people should join if you're not already a member.
REA.org. And it's 8 o'clock, but I think we still have time for one more question. Armin?
Yes, thank you so much for the presentation. This was my first time joining, and I already learned a ton. I'm at the beginning of this journey, and I'm actually in the process of getting multiple quotes. I wonder if anyone on the group can share a little bit more about how they finance their solar system. I'm thinking about, the solar installers, they're offering some sort of loan, which seems to be low interest rate, but the cost of the system is higher. I see loans from banks in the region, and I've been advised from people that you can take a loan against the equity in your home. I just wonder what type of solutions others have tested and what makes most sense.
Well, I used my home equity loan, and because it's a secured loan, I don't think you can do any better than your home equity loan, because if you get in a real good deal from the solar installers on financing, you have to kind of take into consideration what you were mentioning about what they're charging you for the solar system. There is Michigan Saves, which I should mention has a loan reserve fund, which means that for an unsecured loan, they have pretty good interest rates, and that program is run through local banks and credit unions. So, home equity loans are an option. Michigan Saves is an option for folks statewide who don't want to use like the home equity loan.
In Michigan, I'm sorry. Michigan Saves is a $40,000 cap for anything you do. So I could not have done my roof and the solar. We did use Michigan Saves because what we learned from talking to other folks who had solar a few years ago, where they took the deals from the installers, is not only does the installer jack up some of the prices to give that low interest rate, but they also sell the loans. And that is one of the things that is really scary to me, being a different presentation about battling Bank of America for an illegal foreclosure. There's, to me, going to somebody that's going to keep your loan is worth doing it. And
and I just want to reemphasize Michigan Saves. You know, we have been partners with them for years. They vet all solar installers. So they only have this partnership with solar installers that have great reputations, a great record. And all the solar installers that work with Michigan Saves, they work with them all the time, and they can get a loan approved literally within a half hour. So Michigan Saves is clearly the way to go. If you don't want to get a home equity loan and you can't refinance your thing through a mortgage, obviously a mortgage is the lowest costing debt you can get. But if you already own your house, then you have to go the other route. So really look into Michigan Saves. And Patrick O'Boyle is a gentleman that works for Michigan Saves. That is he is on the board of directors of GLREA. So we work with Patrick quite closely.
I'd say for me personally, Michigan Saves was one of the easiest times I've had dealing with the financial situation. And then I went with my own personal credit union where I have a business account and other things. And the real nice thing for me with that is I can pay my Michigan Saves bill right on my app from my phone. So if you go through the local bank through Michigan Saves, everything, at least for me, has been extremely smooth.
Good experience. Lee?
Yeah, hey, John,
Go ahead, Lee.
the thing is that many of the installers that are pre-approved, like John mentioned, don't take a down payment. They'll wait for their money until the job is done. And so where other installers may ask for a down payment, then ask for a progress payment, then, final payment, when Michigan Saves is involved, the job can get done before the homeowner needs to do anything financially.
Okay, that's good to know too. Well, it's 8:05. Thanks again for the presentation. It was excellent. And thanks to everybody who participated for the good discussion. I always learn a lot on these Zooms on Thursday nights. And I hope to see you all next Thursday. Take care.
Thank you so much, John, for making it happen.